3, 2, 1, when you're ready, please.
Okay.
All right, 3, 2, 1, when you're ready.
See you, Jason. In 3, 2.
All right, one of the sacred covenants of startup land is that employees who join a startup company take a lot of risks. They could go work for a big company, they could probably get better benefits, they could probably get a better salary, and they could probably have to work less and have bigger teams, right? So if you join Google this year in 2019 or 2020, you would start with tens of thousands of co-employees. You wouldn't have to take a lot of risk. You could rest, invest. You can, leave early, and there's no real struggle or there's no big question mark. You might get some RSUs, restricted stock units, thrown at you as a little pot sweetener, but you're not going to get the life-changing wealth, in all likelihood, unless you're a top 20 employee, let's say, that you would get if you joined Google in the first year or two. This is obvious to everybody. This is the lottery ticket system which Silicon Valley relies on in order for talented people to join unknown companies. The quid pro quo is you take risk, we give you equity. The equity has a 1 in 10 chance, generally speaking, 1 in 5 chance of becoming worth something. 80% of the time, it's worth 0. 10% of the time, it's worth a nice vacation. And then the other 10%, maybe you buy a condo, a house, or 2. And then in 1%, the Uber, the Facebook, the Google examples, it can be life-changing. So what happens to an employee or a team of employees when that covenant is broken? Well, that's what happened at TopTal. TopTal, as you know, broke not only the covenant with investors who had given them money explicitly to get a return. They didn't convert that convertible note, that safe rather, that simple agreement for future equity. They didn't convert that. They didn't give their investors the expectation they had, and that is the expectation culture here in Silicon Valley. They screwed them, in other words. Now, that's one level of screwing people. That's one level, in my opinion, of lack of ethics. But to screw the rank and file, the employees, the people who are lifting you up as the founder of a company, if what is alleged is true, and it seems to be undeniable, the founder of TopTal is the worst human being to ever run a startup in Silicon Valley or otherwise, or he's definitely up there, top 10. So on the program next, Scott Ritter. Scott, you were an employee from 2011 to 2018. You took 7 years of your life and dedicated it to this company, and you saw it grow phenomenally. You were the director of client success, a critically important position. That is the position, for people who don't know, where you make sure that the customers who gave you money have a great experience so they come back. And you were one of the first sales hires. You heard my preamble. Is the covenant being broken, the lottery ticket being taken away from you, the winning lottery ticket has been taken away from you, Scott. How does it make you feel to win the lottery and then have the person behind the counter take it from you?
Well, Jason, after the amount of time that a person spends in a company like that, it's a work family, so it's even more heartbreaking when you get to that, when something like that happens, and it's more personal even than what would be normally. Now, when you say breaking the covenant, I think there might be 2 distinctions, like legally and ethically, or however you want to state that. I think in most cases he's pretty covered on the legal side. He's going to pull up, in his interview even recently, he mentioned that he never promised anybody equity. He always, in the way that they had those drawn up, unless they were to get another round of funding or sell the company, et cetera, then, that was basically what needed to happen to trigger those. But, that was, an expectation, a more than average expectation, actually. You were talking when you first started about the percentages, maybe not quite Google level, but definitely in or past the condo stage you were talking about is where we were expecting to be. And it's heartbreaking, man. To answer the question in a couple of words, really.
Yeah, and what was the CEO like to work with at the beginning? Tell me about when you first met him.
Tasso is he's a different individual. I'll tell you one thing. He's absolutely genius when it comes to something that he's focused on, like TopTal. I mean, I don't know if you've had time to look up any of his MSNBC interviews or some of the other things that are online where he's talking about the company. He's very passionate about TopTal. I'll give him that. I think that he's a little rough around the edges when it comes to being tactful with people that he's working with and things. Now, if you were to ask him, he would say that he's just very direct and honest. But I think that when you're in the type of position where you are dealing with employees, that direct and honest or brutally direct and honest may not always be the best policy. And I know that he can ruffle some feathers. I do have one really good story about Tasso though. When I went through my divorce many years ago, now I've been there maybe a year or so. He did, I was pretty depressed. He had called me up and was absolutely amazing. He had parents that had passed away, and he just said, we're here for you. Anything that you need, he just, that was cool. But I've seen the other side of the coin as well. So
he obviously got you pumped up to join the company, to put in large amounts of hours. You're saying he's super charismatic. That is superpower in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And like maybe some other leaders who are driven, he's candid to the point of sometimes it being uncomfortable. But he also showed this incredibly caring side to just take time out of his day to talk to you about your personal struggles.
Sure.
Did he pump people up to come work for him with the company's increase in valuation and the promise of stock options? Take me to those moments.
There's the word promise. I had the only example I can give as far as actually promise of equity was my situation. And it wasn't the whole being vested after 5 years scenario. It was way before that, actually, when they had to make an adjustment to the commission structure. I was the second sales guy in the company. Brendan, the COO, the other co-founder, was the first. And we got busy to the point that he called me up and said, dude, can you answer the phone? I'm getting slammed here. And I started, they redirected the 800 number. I started picking up calls. Well, as I'm talking to clients, I'm picking up clients. I would have told you before that, I don't want to do sales. I don't like salespeople. Don't like being, mostly it's the feeling of being sold something. That's like that. Even if I need it, I deliberately then won't do it if I think they're pushing me too hard. So
yeah,
that's kind of how I handled the position. Really I knew what our value proposition was, which was awesome. And I knew what the type of client would be that would be a good fit for us. And if that was a match, then, I definitely tried my best to convey that over. And I had the largest book of business, even when I left, actually, there. But
were you paid well, or were you paid okay, or were you paid great?
I would say, they were getting back to that. So the equity, when we had to make that change, I was at $2,800 a week commissions. My base pay was $3,000. It stayed $3,000 almost up until the end. That never changed much.
$3,000 a month?
Yeah, on the base, right?
So and then, $3,000 a month, and then you got $10,000 coming in commissions.
Yeah, and then
you make about $150.
Yeah, and they made the change, and I went from. He called me up and he said, "Scott," he goes, "this isn't scalable," and I agree with him. I was getting every single, whether the client, if they had 1 or 10 developers, I was making the same thing on all of them. And I know and I knew that wasn't scalable, but it was drastic. He said, listen, we're going to give you $5,000 in cash tomorrow, right or today. And then he said, and $10,000 in company equity. So I can't speak for anybody else. I know that he actually told me that. And in his last interview, he says he records all of those. So I encourage him to pull that up. But
he records covertly everybody's conversation about compensation.
He told Andrew at Mixergy that he records any financial calls and stuff just to make sure that he's, that he can go back and pull that up if he has to. And so I don't know. That was a long time ago. Maybe he did or not. I hope he did, because if he says he never promised anybody directly, that would be one. At least that's the only one I can speak to for sure. But so I went anyway from 2,800 to 600, like overnight. Wow. Yeah. So it took me the next 5+ years to build it back up to pretty close to exactly where it was, even, prior. And, and so that was my, and there were a few times that, my director of sales, who, by the way, Mark Bosma, loves you, watches your show all the time.
Aw, thanks.
He's awesome. He said, he actually said, dude, I went to Brendan and asked for a raise for you. Yeah, I didn't even know. And he goes, it said no, because you're vested now. I'm like, oh.
So hold on, let me just recap for the audience.
Yeah.
Because sometimes maybe they don't know all Silicon Valley speak. You could offer $10,000 in equity to take a serious haircut on your commissions of, 80% of your commissions, 90% of your commissions go away overnight. They give you $5K, which you were making in a week and a half, to buy you off, promises you $10K in equity, and it never shows up. And then tells other people to confirm you don't need a raise because you got equity.
Yeah, right. Well, it came from Brendan at that point.
Yeah, so secondhand you got that, but there's no reason for Brendan to. Yeah, he's a COO co-founder.
Yeah. And the original question was, was that used to entice? And I would say he would deny that maybe, but maybe he doesn't realize how powerful he speaks. I mean, he can talk people down on their salaries. He can, he knows he's good at that. But I would argue that a lot of people definitely, as you mentioned in the beginning, made that decision based on thinking that they were going to get a piece of the pie later. That was more than just a roll of the dice type scenario in their heads. In their heads, they actually believed, based on their conversation or, whatever with Tasso, that was a probable reality, basically.
So let's discuss Tasso and his partner, who is Brendan, who you worked with. He was the CEO co-founder.
Right.
Certainly, Tasso referred to him as his co-founder, correct?
I'm trying to think if he ever actually said that out loud. I mean,
his title was co-founder inside the company. I referred to him as the co-founder.
Yeah, I mean, even on the team page, they were listed as co-founders. Yeah, so
he, in addition to screwing you over twice, his own co-founder listed on the website has zero equity.
Yeah, that's a really weird deal. I honestly, until this whole thing blew up, I thought I figured Tasso had a majority, but I didn't. I figured that Brendan. Somebody even told me he is at least 25% or something. And they come to find out that Tasso's saying from the start that he was just an employee and was never, whatever. I don't.
So that's just a straight up lie.
Yeah, I mean, as far as how everybody in the company thought of it, I mean, whether on paper, that I really don't think even on paper, but I don't know. That's I don't think so, but whatever. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and he, Brendan filed the lawsuit in July that he was verbally promised 70% of the shares.
Yeah.
Do you think? And, we're going to speculate here. So we're going to put this under speculation,
Sure.
Clearly. The stuff we talked about, you've been very good about what's fact and what's not, so I appreciate that.
You bet.
I don't want to lead the witness here, but I do want to talk a little bit about maybe, since you did work with Tasso, what you think, your opinion of what his psychology is. Do you think, because I've been trying to figure this out, do you think that this was a grand strategy from the beginning to screw everybody out of equity? Or do you think over time he realized, well, it's been architected that I have the LLC, I have control, all of these discussions have been verbal, nothing's been put in writing, therefore, worst case scenario, people have to sue me and I settle. Best case scenario, I demoralize everybody and they give up. And if, let's say he would have owned 50% of the company, he gets to own 100. Because This seems to me such a deliberate breaking of the covenant, right? Of the agreement, the sacred agreement here in Silicon Valley, both from rank and file employees like yourself, frontline employees, co-founders, and investors, that this seems to me to be a premeditated screwing of everybody up and down the stack. What do you think, having worked with him for almost 8 years?
I disagree. I think that this was something that grew. I don't think that it was his plan originally. I don't think when he talked to me and promised me what he did, back then. Well, he didn't say shares. He didn't say, he said 10,000 in equity. I back then I had no idea what that meant. In my mind, I'm thinking, well, if due to hits the fan, at least I got $10,000. You know,
Yeah.
know, I didn't really think about the whole increase in valuation or anything like that, or what it would even mean. You know, 10,000 back then is worth what now? Blah blah blah. So
20 times, 30 times, 40 times.
Yeah.
At
No,
least
we're
50.
not going there, man. No.
No, I mean, when you joined it, he made that offer to you in the first or second year.
Oh yeah.
And at that time, how many employees were there?
We had 6 or 7, I think. Yeah.
All right. So you were there in the first year. The company was worth in that first year $10 million.
I was number 3 or 4, depending on how you look at it. Alvaro and I both started on March 1st, 2011. So we were both 3 and 4. Yeah, at that point.
Scott, let me explain to you what you should have gotten. And I'm not doing this to rub salt in it, but I'm doing it because I think it's important. And you've been kind enough to come on here that employees protect themselves. That's the good that can come out of this. But as the third or fourth employee, and given 10,000, 100,000 would be 1% of the company. 10 basis points would be 10,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the valuation at that early stage. Some would argue half of that. The company would have been diluted maybe 20% at this time, right? If they had actually converted that $1.5 million round or converted 15%, right? Diluted 15%. In other words, they would have added some there. So what that would equal to you, the company now is doing 200 million, I heard, or something like that. Is that the public whisper number?
Yeah. Now keep in mind that according to Tazo, that's they're trying to compare apples to oranges with WeWork, which used to be Odesk, of course. Odesk, which is Upwork. Thank you. There we go.
Yeah, Upwork. Yes.
Because they're looking at the gross numbers, which a lot of that does go to the developer. So that's what he's saying.
Right, but they take 30%. Is that right? Something in that range?
It varies, but yeah, it's in that range usually. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 30% of 200 million, 60 million. You would base the company on at least 20 times that, so it'd be 1.2 billion. 1.2 billion. If you owned 1% of that, it'd be 10 million, and 10 basis points would be 1.2 million. You are entitled to 1.2 million in my estimation right now. That's what you should have gotten. And also in the first 3 or 4 employees, you would get a premium for being the person who took the most risk. So at $10,000, it'd be, 10 to 20 basis points would be 1.2 to $2.4 million. Worst case, best case, you probably should have gotten just a straight up point as an early employee like this. Yeah. 1 point would have been 10 million. And that's really why I'm really upset about this, Scott, is the unnecessary nature of screwing you. It's one thing to screw Andreessen Horowitz, the founder of Quora, my friend Roger Dickey from Gigster, and other folks who are already affluent and have had their payday. But I'm assuming you haven't had your payday. That's why you're working still. You haven't had your big payday. And you know what? You took a shot with this company. You took that and you hit the 10% chance. And then this scumbag, and I'll say it, you don't have to, this scumbag, and I'm saying that to Tazo right now, you are a scumbag for doing this to this employee. This is so horrible that I wish nothing but horror for you in your future. I hope you get sued by these investors. I hope you're a pariah. I hope every employee leaves your company, and I hope that the employees leave your company, Tazo. I hope your employees leave the company and raise a round of funding and do a revenge startup, and I will be the first to give them $1 million if they do it. I am infuriated. Now, tell me, Scott, about your company. Now, and I'm sorry if I was out of line there, Scott.
Yeah. Well, you didn't see that.
But you have to forgive me because
I hope they start a startup. I went.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I am so on fire about this because as an angel investor myself, if the people who worked at Uber or Calm or Robinhood were screwed the way you were screwed, the entire framework of Silicon Valley falls apart. You have talented people who are taking less money to go to these startups. And if somebody like this piece of garbage, Tasso Duval, garbage, were to do this on some regular basis, the entire system collapses. And you know what? Just because you can do something legal, Tasso Duval, just because you can legally be such a horrible human being. How did your parents raise you, Tasso? Seriously, how do you sleep at night? This man should have made his 10 million. He should have made his nut. He did the work for you. Give him his goddamn money. pissed off.
Throw that pen.
I'm sorry.
No, it's funny you hit right on it too. During his interview with Andrew was really trying to pin him down on what was the one thing that really contributed to the exponential, because that's really what it was. I mean, we hit an upturn that was crazy, and it just kept going and going. And he was, he was really circling the question, and Andrew kept trying to pin him down, and he never really did give anything specific. And so when I wrote a note back to Andrew was one of my clients at TopTal, actually, Andrew Warner. But I wrote him back. I
love Andrew Warner.
He's awesome. Yeah, I wrote him back and I said, dude, couple of quick things. I was clarifying a few things, and I said, and the one thing I go, the reason I can tell you exactly what it was. I go, it's those core guys. Those 8 guys, whatever, 8, 9 guys that I mentioned at first. You had Martin, you had Gergay Coleman, you had Alvaro and I, you had Brendan. And
Dream team.
Those first scripts that we wrote, those first marketing and SEO efforts that Brandon was handling, because we didn't have a marketing person. My wife even came on when we got to about 15, 16 people, or maybe a little higher. And she became our accounts manager for 3.5 years until we got too big where we had to hire licensed CPAs and whatnot. I remember the first time that I actually didn't know everybody in the company for the first time. That's a weird feeling. Yeah. But it was the core people. It's those 4 core guys that, that we, having a strong foundation like that, and of just top-notch folks that, they used to joke that my superpower was charisma, whatever. I'm not, my developer days, I tell clients, C+ was the last language I worked in. I'm just
Scott, you are charismatic. I will tell you.
Yeah, you don't want me touching your code, yeah. So
no, here's the thing. This is why I'm so fucking angry right now. You can bleep that out, but I don't give a fuck at this point. It's my fucking podcast.
My wife told me to watch my language, dude, and you're the one saying
no, it's fine. You know what? They're going to bleep the shit out of this. I want every curse word, every scumbag, every fuck bleeped, right, just to make my point so we can not lose our ratings here.
Yep.
But it just seems to me that none of these great companies and nobody in life gets there alone. I'm looking back on my career. So many people at so many times were there for me. And I hope I treated everybody as fairly as possible. I'm not saying I was perfect, but I'm hoping. And I still work on my startups to try to get equity, to try to make sure everybody, and I'm on the board of companies, and we approve stock options for these employees on the regular.
It's a business karma. Maybe that's
life karma.
Should be life karma. Yeah. I mean, it is. You get what, I'll tell you something though. I know Tasso pretty well. I think that he actually, in this situation, first of all, he's covered, legally, blah, blah, blah. But in his own mind, I think that he actually thinks that he's accomplished something by wrangling all of that together under himself. I think that he feels, and maybe there are a group of people out there would say, ooh, as a business savvy, hardcore person, that's really an accomplishment to actually get the whole pie.
Actually, you know what, Scott? Everybody here in Silicon Valley is appalled. We are appalled. I apologize to you on behalf of all investors, of all good people in business. I apologize to you. And I want to try to make it up to you, honestly. And I want my audience to try to make up for Scott losing $10 million, because this piece of garbage.
I was at 1.2, dude. I mean, I don't mind 10.
No, we're going to get you a goddamn 10. And here's how we're going to do it.
All right.
I'm going to ask everybody right now to hashtag boycott TopTal. Hashtag boycott TopTal. And I want you to link to Scott Ritter's company, which is called Scrum Spot.
Yeah.
Scrum Spot. Tell me everything about your podcast, because I am going to tweet about you, your company, and I am going to sing from the top of the mountains for TopTal customers to drop TopTal and go to Scrum Spot. Tell me everything.
Yeah, Jason, right on. So, a big issue that we had, I had a TopTal, and then I was at CodeMentor X for 7 months, were disputes. I mean, it got to the point where we'd have a meeting every Wednesday early because everybody had to be on at 6:30 my time. And it just like thousands and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. What would happen though is engagements would start. And in the model that's used for developer networks now, it's very much that the client manages their own project. Okay. All the responsibility is still on the client. So you go to somebody like TopTal, you're getting that vetted developer, and that wasn't a real aspect. It wasn't even 3%, 2.987. I think it was the last time that I actually did the math. I mean, it really is out of 100 Ruby developers or whatever, or PHP, whatever, not even 3 out of those actually make it all the way through the vetting process. So it is, that part's good. But the thing is, once we match that developer with the client, we just let them go. We try to pre-screen a little bit, make sure, if they've had other projects, but we don't get really into the gritty of that, because then that would be responsibility, and we don't, unless they're going through the project management vertical or whatever. So disputes, huge ones. I mean, they would go sometimes 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then the client would get to us and say, man, things have been going sour for 6 weeks now, just getting worse and worse. And, by then it's up to $20,000, $30,000 and just crazy.
Wow.
A lot of cases, it was that the client, even if they've had other projects, really did not know the best methods and tools for managing remote teams. Agile methods, basically is what it comes down to. Agile, and managing things in the way that developers do when they do their own startups,
Right.
And the other thing is communication. There's always that gap. Clients like to see progress, literally. So if that was the case, there wouldn't be any back end, right? It'd be all front end. And developers argue that, clients don't understand that they're actually spending time on things, even when they don't see it in the staging server. And, between that and scope creep, it's like, the client said, well, tweak this and add this and whatever, probably thinking it was 10 minutes worth of work and it's 2 hours worth of work, whatever. But so what this does, what the concept is, when I came up with it a couple years ago, is that ideally the end product, when we get to that stage, will be an automated dashboard where a client can come in, register, pay a small deposit, either refundable, kind of like the same model now. It's either refunded or put towards their invoice. And in all of those tools and processes that we use, such as, we start off, first of all, the client should have their own Bitbucket or GitHub account, whatever their repo is. Project management tool, Trello, Basecamp, Asana, whatever that is, that's in there, and it's really like it's going to be a site of APIs almost, if you think about it. Calendar will have.
So you teach those clients how to manage those developers,
right? Well, right now I'm doing it manually. So basically, we're coming up with new industry terms that haven't been even invented before. We have what we call a project guide. So we're not a project manager. Client's still managing, but we're a guide. So.
Guide on the side.
Contract that kind of lays out the expectations. You need to set up your repo. Developer side, they need to, get together an estimate, put those deliverables into weekly stints, that kind of thing. Everybody's got their own things. And then really from our side, we're kind of checklisting, making sure, because really, if you're having a stand-up meeting on a Monday and a Friday, every week, with your developer, and you guys, you're tracking progress on Trello or Basecamp or whatever you're using, there's never an excuse. Every Friday, you should know exactly where your project is. It should never go 2 weeks or 3.
You got to have discipline.
Right.
You got to have that discipline.
And top developers, the kind of guys that have a passion for code, those top percentage guys in whatever stack it is, those are the guys that are also, they need structure. They're like thoroughbred racehorses. You don't just get onto one of those and just let it do what it wants. You need to, they like that structure of being put down a path of, they're engineers. I mean, that just makes sense, right? Monday at this time we do this. Friday at this time we do this. Whatever. We're communicating throughout the week on Slack. Whatever. So those kinds of things, when those are in place, then, projects are completed. They're not getting way behind at any point really. And, there's your disputes, man. All that money, wasted money of, having to refund people or.
Yeah, it's brutal. Scott, tell me your email address so I can give it to everybody in the audience.
Absolutely. Scott at scrumspot.com.
Okay. So now if somebody wants to build a website, an app, You're the person to go to.
Mobile
you will
or,
set it
or
all up,
web. Mm-hmm.
and you're going to be on it, and you're going to be vigilant
So
and
instead
help
of just
back
letting
the
them
client.
go, I'm going to be right. So I'm going to be holding the
Love it.
developer accountable, and I'll be holding the
And you started this company? Are you working with the team?
Yeah. I've got a couple of guys. One of them was with us at TopTal, Rish Lodakar. He's he's awesome. Him.
So
and
this
his
is your
wife.
company? You're the CEO, founder, or
Yeah.
this
I'm the
time?
principal. I'm calling it principal co-founder at this point until
Got
I
it.
can. Yeah, until I figure things out. Rish, I don't know if he's actually going to join all the way.
Right.
But Georgios, a developer that he was my best guy over at CodeMentor X. Absolutely.
Where are you based?
I am in Oregon right now, actually.
Oh, very nice.
Time
Beautiful.
zone. And Georgios is in Greece. Harish is all over the world. He's in Texas right now. But
all right, listen, I wish you great success with this company. I hope that it scales. I hope that someday I might be able to be an investor in it. You get a team going, and you do it right. You raise money. You put this all together. And just let me ask you a question, because I'm an investor in Gigster. I knew this. I met Roger. I put a small bet in just after the fact because he had sponsored some of our events. He was also an investor in TopTal, and he got screwed. And then he did Gigster. Did Gigster came after TopTal? Is that like?
Yeah.
What's your speculation there? Let's put that together.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was interesting because Andrew during his interview with Tasso, he's like, "So let me just ask you this, Tasso," because he's like figuring out the model, right? He's like, "So I can just basically put an ad out there that I'm doing development. Somebody gets a hold of me, then I just go grab a developer, and I'm basically this middleman, and Tasso wasn't really going to let him." He goes. He said, "Yeah, but you can't let that. The client needs to know that you're using somebody else, not yourself," which is true. But I thought it was kind of ironic or hypocritical. But anyway, I was
just wondering if and Gigster was backed by Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah.
Andreessen Horowitz and Roger were in TopTal,
and they're still doing well. I don't know. It's that magic that we had though. All those people are pretty much gone. When you said, "I hope everybody leaves," there's only like maybe a couple of people still there. Some of them.
How does he get employees, and why would people work with him without this fear of getting screwed?
The new people coming in the door definitely have the expectation that they're not ever going to get any part of the company. They pay well. They do pay
well now. They have to pay well.
So that's not the issue. It's just the whole, getting a piece of the pie issue. So, it's...
I'm just wondering how anybody could go work for Tasso Duval knowing that he screwed these early employees and that Tasso Duval screwed his investors and he screwed his co-founder. Why would anybody building a project trust their website to TopTal, trust their business to TopTal, trust TopTal as an employer? Why would anybody do business with this individual? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I guess if you really don't have, if you really don't care about, it's like buying. Remember back when they had the sweatshops, and you're like, well, don't buy this brand of clothing or whatever. It's something like that kind of. It's not like they don't have great developers. It's not that It's not that you're whatever. Especially if you can manage your own project well, you can get some of the best developers in the world there.
Got it. So the product is good.
That being said, do you want to support that or not or whatever? And I guess I don't.
I'm going to go ahead and say don't. I hope that you do great. I hope that my audience has a great experience working with your fine firm.
Take a vacation. Take a vacation. Come up here to Oregon, and I'll take you out. We'll go fishing and do some crabbing.
Nice.
Yeah, you bet.
You do crabbing out there?
Dude, Dungeness, man. We throw in
what?
Throw in the crab pots. Go salmon fishing. Then when you're done, you pick those up, and I
love that. I take my daughter crabbing out here in San Francisco just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
And we give the crabs we find to the other guys on the pier who are eating it. But culture is top down.
There you go.
Man, Tasso, you've built a culture of bile and unethical behavior, and I hope the chickens come home to roost for you. That is my wish for you, Tasso. I hope that your business collapses and that your competitors and your former employees beat you in the open marketplace the way you deserve to be beaten. All right, Scott, good luck. We'll see you all next time when this week starts.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Take care, man. Be cool. Hey, I appreciate that. When you're in town, stop by and we'll have a coffee.
Will do, man.
Ooh, God damn it.
Is that good, guys?
Guys get me all
Jay.
pissed off.
Big J.
So anyway, you gotta,
Yeah.
for the fun of it,
Yeah.
I'll bleep.
every time I say stomach,
Scott, thank you so much, man.
Hey,